The White Rose, Sparrow, and Unicorn. Once there was a beautiful valley, just the prettiest place you could ever imagine. There were big willow trees with branches that swayed in a gentle breeze. In the distance, pine trees grew straight and tall. Chattering squirrels scampered along their branches. Furry bunnies nibbled on the green grass. Small brooks and streams flowed quietly through lush meadows. Oh, how beautiful this valley was! As far as you could see, flowers bloomed in all the colors of the rainbow. The meadows hummed in the summer heat as bees and butterflies floated from flower to flower. Up on the hill, you could see a fat old bear munching a snack of sweet, juicy berries. Down in the stream, there was a beaver swimming back and forth as he gathered branches to build his dam. Over in the meadow, there were baby deer prancing and playing, chasing the butterflies. Up in the sky, great geese flew in perfect formation. All around, little sparrows sang joyfully. Such a wonderful valley this was. What made it even more special was that everywhere you looked, there were white roses, great bushes filled with white roses. Their sweet fragrance perfumed the air. This valley was truly a beautiful place. The edges of the valley, past the rolling hills, stood mountains so high that their tops were covered with snow most of the year. On their steep and jagged cliffs, only the hardiest of plants could grow. There were a few scraggly trees with gnarled trunks and scratchy leaves. There was a little grass, but it was not very green. If you looked real hard, though, way up on a high rocky ledge, you could see a single white rose bush. How did such beautiful rose bush get so far away from the green meadows below? A wind must have whooshed through the valley sometime and carried a seed up the mountain to the lonely ledge. The seed grew, the way seeds do, finding some soil whoever it could. Growing on the high ledge was hard work, but the rose bush was determined. His roots grew long. The little rose bush became hardy and strong, but he was all alone. He was so lonely he drooped his head, sad as he could be. So often White Rose wished that he could have grown down in the valley where everything was happy and friendly. No one else was all alone except him. All he could do was cry. You see, White Rose had been alone for a long time. Season after season had passed. Every spring, he could see new life throughout the valley. Yet, up on his rocky ledge, all that he could see around him were bare mountain rocks. Sometimes he would see a great eagle swoop past him on her way to the valley. On quiet days, he could even hear her baby chicks squawking in their nest, high above in the outcropping rocks. The mother eagle never stopped to say hello. She was too busy taking food to her family. In the spring and summer, butterflies would drift up the mountainside on the warm air currents. They never stayed long enough to get to know him, though. Even bees buzzed around in their search for honey. They stopped to gather pollen from White Rose. He liked that, because it tickled his chin when they gathered his pollen. But bees are always in a hurry, and don't stay long at all. There was even a spider family that lived just a few yards from where White Rose grew, but they kept to themselves, as spiders do that live in the craggy rocks. Of all the creatures that did live up in the mountain, the little chipmunks scampered about so fast during the daytime that White Rose could hardly see them. Besides, they mostly came out at night to gather their food. White Rose was usually asleep then. Sometimes, though, White Rose had trouble falling asleep. The craggy rocks cast dark, scary shadows in the moonlight. It seemed empty on the ledge. He could only imagine how much more comfortable he would be if he were down in the valley, surrounded by other living things. But for the most part, life on the mountain ledge was very lonely. White Rose was starting to lose hope that he would ever have a friend. One morning, White Rose awoke to the most beautiful sunrise he had ever seen. The golden rays of warm light splashed over the mountain into the valley below. The morning mists gently clung to the meadows and the hills. White Rose felt a cool breeze on his petals and saw the clearness of the blue sky. The beauty of the morning surrounded him just as it had many times before. This time, his eyes were open to really see the wonder of experiencing the moment. He closed his eyes to better hear the gurgle of the distant stream. All of a sudden, he heard a rustle of wings. He looked around, and there, hopping along the ground, tweeting a beautiful song, was a small brown sparrow. Sparrow looked up and saw White Rose. "My, what a beautiful rose you are," he said. "Your petals are white as snow, and your leaves are waxy green. But you look unhappy. What's wrong? Are you sad?" White Rose just sighed. "Oh, I'm sad because I'm all alone." Sparrow bobbed his little head all around. He could see the rose really was all alone. "I see," chirped Sparrow. White Rose just sighed again, and his head drooped a little. A teardrop slowly rolled down his petals. Sparrow thought to himself, "It must be awful to be so alone. What can I do? How can I help?" Then Sparrow had a wonderful idea. "I know," Sparrow tweeted to White Rose. "I'll keep you company." He hopped up onto the branch next to White Rose and settled his feathers. White Rose felt a little bit better. He loved sparrows and often watched them as they played in the valley. "I'm glad you're here, Sparrow," said White Rose. "I wish I could fly like you. You always seem so happy, flying about with your friends." Sparrow bobbed his head thoughtfully as he looked around. Up on the mountain ledge, it was nice and quiet. As he looked down into the valley, he could see his friend, Squirrel, gathering his lunch of nuts and berries. And there was his family in their new nest. Then he saw how alone White Rose was, even though he was so beautiful, and he could see everything in the valley below and the mountains above. Sparrow suddenly realized how lucky he was. He had a family and many friends in the valley below. "White Rose, just look around you. You can see the whole valley from here. Up here, you have your own special place. Maybe one day, others will discover how special your place is here." White Rose just sighed. Other seeds had landed here before, but they hadn't been strong enough to survive. Suddenly, Sparrow had another idea. Hopping up and down, he tweeted excitedly, "I can help! I can help! I'll be right back." Quick as a wink as he flew down to the valley. White Rose looked as hard as he could, but Sparrow was already down among the trees. White Rose was all alone again. Just as he began to think that Sparrow would never come back, he heard the fluttering of wings and the sounds of scratching on the ground below him. Looking toward the ground, White Rose saw Sparrow. "Why, there you are," White Rose said. "I thought you'd never return. What are you doing?" Sparrow mumbled a reply, but White Rose couldn't understand a thing he said. Sparrow was busy scratching around in the dirt near his roots. What was he doing? Finally, Sparrow finished patting the dirt back into place. All the seeds he had brought from the valley were now in the ground. He said, "There, I'm done." "What did you do?" asked White Rose. Sparrow just smiled his biggest smile. "It's a surprise. You'll see." Then he fluffed his feathers and said, "I have to go now. My family needs me. We have a lot to do to get ready for the winter. But I'll be back." White Rose wondered about the surprise. He wanted to ask Sparrow more about it, but he was already flying back to the valley. Sadly, White Rose just drooped his head again. It was true. Winter was coming. Sparrow and his family must have a lot to do to survive the cold winter. All the living things had to prepare for the coming season. He sighed out loud. "I hope you come back, Sparrow." The days began to grow shorter. Cooler, crisper breezes were a sure sign that fall was in the air. The meadow grasses and the trees turned to golden browns, bright reds, and yellows. Most days, the sky was gray and cloudy. All through the valley, the animals were scurrying about, getting ready for winter. The bear was filling his den with soft grass and leaves for a comfortable long winter sleep. The beaver was busy patting his tail over the last layers of mud in the dam that he worked on all summer long. The deer were browsing around finding the last few green shoots. The birds were stocking their nests with the remaining berries. The trees in the valley had let the rest of their fruit fall to the ground so squirrels and mice could gather it for the long winter. All the flowers and roses of the valley were dropping their leaves and closing their buds as they prepared for the long winter sleep. The leaves on the trees had fallen, carpeting the valley floor like a snugly warm blanket. The valley was ready for winter. Soon, icy winds howled from the north. Cold rains fell. Ponds began to freeze. And then, snow wrapped the valley with the beauty of winter. All alone up on the mountain ledge, White Rose shivered in the cold darkness. His leaves had dropped off, and his white petals were gone. His roots had grown long and deep in the crevices of the rocky ledge, clinging tightly to the mountain. All about him the rocks were covered with snow. Winds howled and tore at his branches, but White Rose was strong and able to hold on. He closed his eyes, shutting out the bitterness of the season, and fell into his dormant winter sleep. Over the long months, White Rose slept, his bare branches silhouetted against the gray sky. Finally, spring began to arrive with warm rays of sunshine. Melting snows filled the brooks and streams that flowed faster through the valley. One morning in early spring, White Rose was awakened by the sound of footsteps in the snow. As he opened his eyes, he saw a beautiful unicorn, appearing golden in the morning light, walking softly to him. Unicorn stopped, standing next to the rose, and said, "My, what a beautiful rose bush you must be! You have brought beauty to our rocky mountain ledge. Not many plants can grow up here on the mountainside as you have. You must be strong and brave." White Rose, a little cranky at being awakened, said, "What good is strength when one is so alone? All I can do is watch other plants and animals living happily down in the valley." As White Rose spoke, Unicorn had both a smile and a tear, for he understood White Rose. His tear fell on the very spot where Sparrow had planted the seeds. Unicorn then said to White Rose, "I understand how you feel. You see, I too am alone. A long time ago, there were many beautiful unicorns. We went about the forest protecting the flowers and the animals. I was never alone then. Now there are no other unicorns left. Sometimes I am sad, but when I see all the beauty in the world, my loneliness does not feel so great. For I know I have a special place in this world to love and to be loved, and to be of help to others. Someday you will have plenty of company and many friends. Don't ever give up hope, White Rose, for love is your hope." White Rose began to smile a little and to feel better. Maybe Unicorn was right. Unicorn smiled at White Rose and nudged his branches gently. "You are brave and strong. Your beauty is boundless. I will be your friend forever. Every year, as I pass these mountains, I'll stop to see you." White Rose was happy. He began to realize he was not alone, so long as he held the memory of his friends in his heart. "Can't you stay for a while?" "I wish I could, but the world is awakening from its long winter sleep. I must go to help others as lonely and as sad as you were," said Unicorn. With a toss of his golden mane, Unicorn was gone, swift as the morning breeze. White Rose began to feel spring's warmth on his branches. No longer sad, he smiled at spring's arrival. He felt new leaves coming forth and buds beginning to bloom. The whole valley below blossomed again with new life. Birds and animals with new babies played about. The air was scented and sweet with the blooms of both white roses and wildflowers in all the colors of the rainbow. One quiet spring morning, as the mist clung to the meadow, White Rose heard the noisy chirping of baby sparrows. Looking around, he saw his friend Sparrow and his family. "Hi," chirped Sparrow. "I'm back, just like I promised." With a big smile, White Rose said, "I hoped you would come back, and you did." Sparrow tweeted, "Never give up hope. Look now and see all these beautiful white rose bushes growing here with you. Now you never have to be alone again." White Rose looked all around. There were many new rose bushes growing right where Sparrow had scratched in the ground last summer. That was the surprise that Sparrow had promised him. White Rose bloomed with happiness because now he also understood true friendship. He said to Sparrow, "My friend, how wise you are, so full of love and joy. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for teaching me hope." Sparrow just fluttered his wings and chirped his happy song of love and hope. To this very day, atop that mountain ledge and all through the valley, the beauty of life continues with white rose bushes growing in Sparrow's plain. And throughout the world, there are small reminders of how the beauty of life and the giving of love are all around us. Friendship can bring light to cloudy days. With faith, hope, and trust, loneliness can be just a moment's weeping.